Alright, that was chapter 32. Sennacherib invades Judah. After these things and these acts of faithfulness, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and invaded Judah and encamped against the fortified cities, thinking to win them for himself. And when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come and intended to fight against Jerusalem, he planned with his officers and his mighty men to stop the water of the springs that were outside the city, and they helped him. A great many people were gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the brook that flowed through the land, saying, "Why should the kings of Assyria come and find much water?" He set to work resolutely and built up all the wall that was broken down and raised towers upon it. And outside it he built another wall, and he strengthened the middle of it in Jerusalem. He also made weapons and shields in abundance, and he set combat commanders over the people and gathered them together to him in the square at the gate of the city, and spoke encouragingly to them, saying, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or dismayed before the king of Assyria with all the horde that is with him. For there are more with us than with him. With him is the arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles." People looked confident, and people took confidence in the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. Sennacherib Blasphemes. After this, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, who was besieging Lachish with all his forces, sent servants to Jerusalem to Hezekiah, king of Judah, to all the people of Judah who were in Jerusalem, saying, "Thus says Sennacherib, king of Assyria, on what are you trusting, that you endure the siege in Jerusalem? Is not Hezekiah misleading you, that he may give you over to die by famine and by thirst, when he tells you, the Lord our God will deliver us from the hand of the king of Assyria? Has not this same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem before one altar you shall worship, and on it you shall burn your sacrifices? Do you not know what I and my fathers have done to all people of other lands? Were the gods or demons of the nations of those lands at all able to deliver their lands out of my hand? Who among all the gods of those nations that my fathers devoted to destruction was able to deliver his people from my hand, that your God should be able to deliver you from my hand?" And when he said that, he pretty much just made a death sentence for him, because God was not going to put it with up. "Now therefore do not let Hezekiah deceive you or mislead you in this fashion, and do not believe him, for no God of any nation or kingdom has been able to deliver his people from my land, or from my hand, or from the hand of my fathers. How much less will your God deliver you out of my hand?" And he's straight about to die, because God is not going to put it with us. That's blasphemy, you know. And his servant said still more against the Lord. And his servant said still more against the Lord God and against the servant Hezekiah, and he wrote letters to cast contempt on the Lord, the God of Israel, who is of course Christ, and to speak against him, saying, "Like the gods of the nations of the lands who have not delivered their people from my hand, so the God of Hezekiah will not deliver his people from my hand." And they shouted out with a loud voice in the language of Judah to the people of Jerusalem who were on the wall, to frighten and terrify them, in order that they might take the city. And they spoke of the God of Jerusalem as they spoke of the gods of the people of the earth, which are the work of men's hands. The Lord delivers Jerusalem. And Hezekiah the king and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, prayed because out of this, and cried to heaven. And the Lord sent an angel who cut off all the mighty warriors and commanders and officers in the camp of the king of Assyria, so he returned with shame to his face. So he returned with shame of his face to his own land. And when he came into the house of his God, some of his own sons struck him down there with a sword. So the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, king of Assyria, and from the hand of all his enemies, and he provided for them on every side. And many brought gifts to the Lord to Jerusalem, and precious things to Hezekiah, king of Judah, so that he was exalted in the sight of all nations from that time onward. So, right, I mean, God pretty much just totally annihilated the Assyrians for coming against him and his people, Israel and Judah, and God saved Israel and Judah from attack. So again, never come against God, because when you do, you will be put to shame every time, just like the king of Assyria was. So never come against God, or you will be brought down. Hezekiah's pride and achievements. In those days Hezekiah became sick and was at the point of death, and he prayed to the Lord. He answered him and gave him a sign. Hezekiah did not make return according to the benefit done to him, for his heart was proud. Therefore wrath came upon him in Judah and Jerusalem. But Hezekiah humbled himself with the pride of his heart, both he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of the Lord did not come upon them in the days of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah had very great riches and honor, and he made for himself treasuries for silver, for gold, for precious stones, for spices, for shields, and for all kinds of costly vessels, storehouses also for the yield of grain, wine, and oil, and stalls for all kinds of cattle and sheepfolds. He likewise provided cities for himself, and flocks and herds in abundance, for God had given him very great possessions. This same Hezekiah closed the upper outlet of the waters of Gihon, and directed them down to the west side of the city of David, or Jerusalem. And Hezekiah prospered in all of his works, and so in the matter of the envoys of the princes of Babylon, which is Iraq, who had been sent to him to inquire about the sign that had been done in the land, God left him to himself in order to test him, to know all that was in his heart. And the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his good deeds, behold, they are written in the vision of Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amaz, in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Hezekiah died, and they buried him in the upper part of the tombs of the sons of David, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem did him honor at his death, and Manasseh his son reigned in his place. They have a map here. Let's see real quick. Hezekiah fortifies Jerusalem in 702 BC. In anticipation of Assyrian attack, King Hezekiah of Judah fortified Jerusalem, repairing broken sections of the wall and redirecting the flow of water from the Gihon spring to the city. He also outfitted his army with weapons and shields and appointed battle commanders over the people. Archaeological evidence suggests he also enclosed the western hill of the city with a new wall and built the Temple Mount and around Solomon's temple. So the map here, up north you have the upper pool, then you have the Tower of Hanil and Tower of 100, which are right beside each other, and then you have the temple itself at the end of the Temple Mount. And then you have the Kidron Valley, the Broad Wall, the Valley Gate, Jerusalem itself, Gihon Spring, the Mill Lode, Hezekiah's Tunnel, the King's Garden, the Lower Pool, the Pool of Siloam, and En-Rogel in the Hinnom Valley. Anyway, this is what Jerusalem looked like at the time of Hezekiah, right here. That's what it looked like. Of course, you see the temple right there, the Temple Mount, and all that. That's what Jerusalem looked like at the time of Hezekiah. They also have another map. Assyria attacks Judah, 701 BC. During the reign of Hezekiah of Judah, Sennacherib of Assyria came and attacked cities along the western edge of Judah. And he sent officials to besiege Jerusalem and convinced Hezekiah to surrender. The Cushite king, Cush would have been, let me think real quick, that would be Ethiopia. Basically, the Ethiopian king, Tirhakah, advanced from Egypt to support Hezekiah, but apparently failed. The siege of Jerusalem was broken when the angel of the Lord killed 185,000 Assyrians in a single night. Sennacherib withdrew and returned to Nineveh, which is in northern Iraq, where his own sons killed him. So God sent this. That's just amazing how the Assyrian king, blasphemes God, and God ends up killing the Assyrian king's army, and God totally annihilates his army, and the Assyrian king goes back home and is killed by his sons. That's just amazing. So don't mess with God, because when you do, you will bite the dust, pretty much. So they have a map here. You have the Assyrian district, which was Samaria and Ashdod. Samaria would have been, of course, where Israel's at today. Central Israel, which would have been Jerusalem, around Jerusalem. Anyway, the Assyrian district, you had they were in control of Samaria and Ashdod, and then Sennacherib attacks from the north, from Assyria. He attacks Judah all the way over to where Ashdod is at now. And Sennacherib's officers attack Jerusalem, and then Tirhakah, or Ethiopia, advances and attacks Assyria. And the cities that are taken by the Assyrians are Jerusalem, Lachish, Libnah. So it's very interesting here. And here's a picture of that. that map right there. You can see that. It's hard to hold that up. Right there. Of course, you see that. So that's that map. They also have a huge map, which I will make a video on by itself for this map. And that map's called Jerusalem in Time of Hezekiah, 725 to 686 BC. I'll be right back with that map here shortly.